All you have to do is buy an herb plant one time and you will have a lifetime supply of that herb. I am not exaggerating in the least, and today I'm going to show you how to turn that herb plant you just bought from the plant shop into hundreds, if not thousands of more plants. We're talking plants for you, for your children, your grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren. They're going to have all the herbs they need because you learned this hack. So the best herbs to do this propagation method with are those that are in the Lamiaceae family, otherwise known as the mint plant family. All of those plants can be propagated this way. Propagation is just a fancy word for making more plants. So we're going to start off today and do oregano. Oregano is in this plant family. So we're going to use oregano. You might see my oregano and think, Nicole, who needs more oregano? Not you. Well, I mean, my grandchildren, they might want some. So I'm going to turn these into many more plants. I don't ever want to have to buy oregano again. And I don't want anyone that I know to have to buy oregano again. So I've got oregano growing here on the front corners of my raised beds. And I'm going to be taking cuttings from this oregano to turn them into many, many more plants. So I've got my pruners, my oregano. I'm ready to get started. I'm going to tell you two types of cuttings that you can take from these plants. One's called a hardwood cutting. The other one's called softwood. Probably self-explanatory, but I'm going to give you a couple details. So you're going to find hardwood more at the heart of the plants that you're trying to make more of. And you can see this right here on this oregano. It literally just broke in half. That proves my point. So the hardwood is going to break in half when you bend it, right? And so the hardwood cutting is something you could propagate. It's going to take longer and it's going to need more care, but you can definitely propagate from hardwood cuttings, but it's kind of what I would call a next level skill. And you would take that hardwood cutting and instead of putting it in water or even soil, you would put it into sand. So I've got hardwood here at the base of the plant. Hardwood is actually just another way of saying an older stem. So it's hard. We're at the start of the season right now. And so you're actually going to see less hardwood because all this is like fresh new growth on the oregano. You can see it here. This is hardwood, old growth from last year. So this you could definitely propagate, but it's going to be more in sand and it's going to be slower to grow. Not this hardwood. This hardwood's dead. But a hardwood cutting would be able to be put in sand. All right, the next kind of cutting we want to talk about is a softwood cutting. A softwood cutting is the newest growth and it's at the top of the stem. And a softwood, you know, the name says it all. Essentially, you can take this part of the stem, fold it back on top of each other, and look at that. It does not break. It just bends. It's flexible. That means that there's lots of water moving through this part of the stem. There's a lot of new growth. There's a lot of cell movement here. And so that's a sign that this is a great part to cut from the plant in order to make more plants. There's a special kind of cell in a plant called meristem cell, and it's amazing. It is the point in the plant where there is massive production of new growth. And it's just these, usually at the tip of each plant. And that's why every time you come back to your plants in the kitchen garden, they've got more leaves, they've got more flowers, they've got more fruit, is because those meristem cells are working overtime on the tips of these plants to produce lots of new growth. And so that's why I love taking softwood cuttings, because the plant is actually working with me. The plant is wanting to make lots of new cells, lots of new growth. And so you can take this from an existing plant, put it in another container, and it's going to be working overtime, growing new cells, and it'll end up growing you a brand new plant. So now it's time to take some cuttings from our softwood, and I just literally go around to a plant, existing plant, and you want to cut right above a leaf node. So a leaf node is a part on the stem where the stem sends out leaves to both sides. And in this plant family, the mint plant family, generally you're going to have the stem in the center and then leaves to either side. So right here for this particular type of oregano, we've got main stem and then we've got leaves on either side. And then we've got about 1 inch or 2 of a main stem and then leaves on both sides. And it continues that way all the way up. So the reason why we're going to cut right above a leaf node is because this is a point where the plant will regrow. So we've got meristem cells happening here. These are going to branch out and you'll end up sending the plant to both sides. So you get a much bushier plant. You end up with like double the leaf growth on the same main stem. All right, so it's now time to take some cuttings finally. So I'm just gonna take my pruners. I love using needle nose pruners for this because they let me get right in to where I wanna cut. And I'm gonna go right into the main stem, split that leaf node and cut at a slight diagonal, just like that. So I've got a nice long stem right underneath the plant, and boom, I'm now ready to propagate these. Now, as soon as you take this cutting, this stem is on its way to extinction. So you got to move quickly. You don't want to take this cutting, you know, and then go to bed, wake up 5 days later and try to make some new plants. You got to do this right away. All right. So this is a 5-minute project, but you've got to do it within the 5 minutes. So I'm going to take a bunch of cuttings and then we'll move on to the next step. All right. So now we are ready to put these into a container. Now, the simplest way you can do this is just by putting it in a glass of water. Definitely done that, but I found that the plants last so much longer and grow stronger if they actually grow in a soil medium. And so I'm gonna teach you that method today. They'll make the transition back to the container or into a garden so much better than they would if they came from a glass of water. So to start, we're going to use an Oya because for a plant to grow into a new plant, to propagate, to grow new roots from a cutting, it needs to stay consistently moist. So not soaking wet, but the soil surrounding our cuttings needs to always stay moist. That moist environment is what is going to allow those cuttings to start to produce roots. So you never want the soil to dry out. You want it to stay at a really nice consistency so that there's plenty of water for that cutting to pull up and turn into roots. So to accomplish this, we're using an Oya. This is an ancient way of watering the garden, and it's simply a terracotta pot that has a closed bottom and an open top. And what we're gonna do is fill this up with water, and this will be the consistent source for the water for our cuttings. What happens with the Oya, this terracotta surface is permeable. So it allows the water to leave the terracotta pot, go into the surrounding soil. The minute that the soil dries out, it's going to pull moisture from the Oya, which will come out of the terracotta pot. It'll be absorbed outside of this pot, and then it will add more water to the soil. So your only job to turn these cuttings into actual plants is to keep this filled with water. So we're doing this outside. I'm just going to put my hose on a pretty low setting and just spray right into the Oya just like this, and just fill the whole thing up. So you don't have to be afraid of overwatering or putting in too much water into this, because this is going to balance itself out. So we fill it up just like that, and now we are ready to set up our container for propagating. So I'm just using a very simple terracotta pot. It is filled with a pretty simple soil mix. I've got some topsoil in here, a little bit of compost. You could have a little bit of sand mixed in. You know, I love having sand with my herb plants, but you do not have to. So we are going to position the soil all around the terracotta pot just like this, and then we are ready to put in our cuttings. All right, so now that we've got our Oya filled, it is time to plant our cuttings. So we've got all these really healthy, fresh cuttings of oregano, and all I'm going to do is strip the leaves from the bottom third of each stem. So stripping the leaves is going to allow this plant to put all of its energy toward root formation. And you also don't want those leaves going into the soil because they're going to degrade. They could cause mold or mildew. Any kind of breakdown in the soil is not what we want, because we want the plant to be putting all of its energy toward creating more plants. So I'm pulling all these extra leaves off the bottom third of each plant like this. And then we're going to slowly move these into the pot so that they can get busy growing roots. All right, so now that we've done those cuttings, it is time to trim the ends so that they can absorb as much water as possible. And to do that, I'm just simply going to cut a little bit off of each end, not too much, and I'm going to cut it at a diagonal. So this is just making sure that the cut is as fresh as possible and ready to absorb the water from the soil and start to make roots for us. All right, now that we've done that, it is finally time to place our cuttings into our pot. So I'm going to put the stem pretty low down because these stems will produce roots even from the sides. And I'm going to use my dibber so that I disturb the stem as little as possible as I'm placing it. So I'm using my dibber, getting this into the hole, and then I'm going to continue to place it all around this pot. Now you don't have to worry too much right now about the spacing because these are tiny little stems. So eventually these are going to grow into really big plants, but right now they're little. So doesn't need tons of spacing. We just need enough room for each little cutting to get water and to grow roots. So I use my dibber, make sure I disturb the stem as little as possible. You don't want to bend the stem. If you do bend the stem, just start over. You've got plenty more cuttings to do. And I just continue to go around in a circle. All right, once I've done the outside circle, now I'm going to go closer to the Oya. And these actually will be the strongest plants. So if you have really good cuttings, you want to preserve and keep those to be the ones you put the closest to the Oya, because these will have the most consistent water and are generally going to produce roots for you first. All right, and that is it. From here, what you're going to do is keep this Oya filled with water. It's going to take 3-4 weeks before these little seedlings are going to create little roots that you can then pull these plants out and then put them into a container or into your garden. But you're gonna have to be patient and you're gonna have to keep this Oya filled. Where do you place this? You place this inside in a place with filtered light. It does not need bright light. It does not need to be outside. It needs to be in a protected space where these plants can just kind of calm down and grow a lot of roots. That's our goal right now, is just a load of roots on each and every one of these cuttings. So you can see I filled this container full. The fuller the better. You really don't want exposed soil even in this little container, because that's going to dry out faster. So we pack it in with lots of cuttings and then come back 3 to 4 weeks, check one of the cuttings, see if it's got roots, and then you can pull it up, pot it up, turn it into a plant that you put into your garden, that you give to a friend or a family member, that you save for your kids, your grandkids, your great-great-grandkids. You really can turn each and every plant that you buy as an herb plant. You can turn it into at least 100 more with this method, and hopefully you will never find yourself looking for herbs at the plant shop again. Now, if you love this content, you are definitely going to love my video all about planting lots of herbs in just one container. And you can watch that video right here so that you can keep learning how to replace your grocery store herbs with ones that you grow yourself. We're on a mission to help you do just that at Gardenary. In fact, our company-wide mission is that by 2030, everybody has a garden packed with their own herbs. We're saying bye-bye to trucked and grocery store herbs. So if you're down for that mission, tell us in the comments that you're joining us, that you're gonna replace your groceries with your garden right alongside us at Gardenary. And then head below this video, there is an incredible resource that will teach you how to grow herbs and keep them alive. The Herb Garden Guidebook is completely free, and you can get it right below this video and start growing your own herbs, all kinds of herbs, right away. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Gardenary channel.